While Cerakoting a scope is not rocket science, you do need to pay attention to a few key considerations and factors. That's what I'm going to demonstrate in this video. Hey guys, Captain Gear here from UltimateReloader.com. The ability to Cerakote a scope can give a custom rifle a completely different feel and dynamic. It's a really awesome capability to have. But there are some things that you need to do a little bit differently when you're Cerakoting a scope as opposed to when you're Cerakoting something like a Glock slide or a chassis or even a mount or rings. So I completed this custom Cerakote job on a scope at Cerakote's Advanced Applicators training on site in White City, Oregon, and I'll tell you, it was a really great learning experience. This is a little bit more complicated a Cerakote job than what I have planned for today. There are more details that require masking on this scope. I did multiple colors and we have a distressed Cerakote finish as well. So what I wanted to do was keep this as simple as possible and cover the key considerations and process that you're going to be looking at to Cerakote your own rifle scope. There are a few key differences that I want to point out right off the bat. First is masking. Masking a scope requires a lot of attention to detail and precision because there's certain features on the scope, certain engraving marks, certain emblems and that kind of thing that we don't want to Cerakote. The second is scuffing. We're going to scuff the scope with Scotch-Brite instead of sandblasting like we normally would with 100 grit aluminum oxide. We can't use abrasive media blasting with a scope because it would cram abrasive media in all sorts of places where we don't want it. The third consideration is the curing process and temperature. We're going to be down at 150 degrees rather than the normal 250. And that's because there are a lot of temperature sensitive components in a scope, including the glass, including certain like rubber and polymer parts, that sort of thing. So it's a little bit more like curing a Glock frame that has polymer, for instance. And that's where having two ovens can come in handy. We have the Built American BAE 0200. We have that UR5 code where you can save 5% on all Built American products, whether it be a booth or ovens, right? So if we were going to do a job like a chassis and a mount and the scope, we would have all the metal parts running at 250, and then we would have the scope body itself and any polymer parts at the lower cure temperature. So having two ovens in a pro shop is definitely where you want to be. I'm going to start off by cleaning this scope with acetone so our masking sticks extra good. Okay, now that we have the scope cleaned off with acetone, I'm going to do this with bare hands because we're going to be cleaning this with acetone again. We need to make sure that we have zero residue. But for the level of precision that I'm going to need on this, we're definitely going to want to leave the gloves off. Okay, so let's go over game plan here. So we're going to have markings on the top of this elevation turret, for instance, that we're going to want to mask off. And as you can see here, what we did was we took some of this high temp vinyl and cut it on a vinyl cutter. I'm hoping to demonstrate something more simple. I've got a compass with an X-Acto knife here, and we should be able to create these masking discs. The most important one here is for the objective. We're going to need a piece of vinyl that's going to be this size, if not just ever so slightly larger than that. And then we're going to use high temperature tape to mask off other details on the scope and the rubber portion of the eyepiece, that kind of thing. So I'm going to get going on the process and then I'll fill you in on what we end up with. we're masked. Okay, so that wasn't too bad. We've got our high temperature vinyl and we've got our high temperature tape, and we kind of did an interesting combination of both there. So I'll just note some of the areas. We've got the scale for elevation here. We've got the markings on the turret. We've got our parallax distance here. I did a little high temperature tape over the Athlon emblem and then traced it with an X-Acto knife there. We used the compass to do this elevation turret cap top, right? That's going to give us all of our markings on the top there. And then I also did the front of the objective there. We've got our scope designation markings over there. Our actual magnification power, that was our thinnest roll of tape. It's good to have that around. And then I decided we can either have the eyepiece cranked all the way out for diopter, or we can have it cranked all the way in. And because I think our tan is going to look really good with the black, I'm just going to crank that all the way in. You can see here last time I actually Cerakoted that surface and even distressed it. We've got the rubber back here, more high temperature tape. So a lot of attention to detail. This stuff has to be straight as an arrow. But if you take your time, not a problem. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to glove up again. We're going to get some acetone going, but before that, we're going to scuff this with a red Scotch-Brite pad, being very, very careful to not disrupt any of our masking. The funny thing is, I didn't mention this, there's a little indicating arrow here for our magnification. I even masked that. That was a little tricky. I had to cut a triangle of high temperature tape and stick that down in position. So sometimes it is the attention to detail that matters. I'm using brand new red Scotch-Brite here because I don't want to have any contaminants. Contaminants are not your friend when it comes to Cerakote. So we're just going to very carefully scuff the entire surface of the scope here, and then we will do another round of compressed air, and we'll also do some acetone to remove any lingering finger oils, you know, because I wasn't using gloves. So what I'm looking at here while I'm doing this is just the surface. Once we're nice and dull, we know that we've gotten a pretty decent level of scuffing here. Again, I'm being super careful with my masking, like going in the proper direction to not peel it off. When I worked at a body shop, we would scuff paint in sensitive areas with Scotch-Brite and certain abrasive compounds instead of using sandpaper, especially blend areas. Okay, so I'm looking at this and it looks like we're close to done here. I want to make sure elevation is all the way up if we want this surface here to have an even layer of Cerakote. Okay, so here comes another trick. Before I wipe this down with acetone, I want to get this hung, basically. And so what we're going to do is use a large quick grip style clamp and clamp just like that. Now we can coat the scope and hang it like this. So we should be able to reach all of the areas. I want to optimize this just a little bit better by rotating this just a touch so that we're out here away from the various caps. Okay, so I fixed things a little bit. Our masking here, the vinyl was tugged just a little bit. It had a little bit of a ripple in it. I'm happy with that, so we can go ahead and hang this, blow it off, and use some acetone to clean it off. So we're going to use Coyote Tan. This is H235, so I'm going to put this on the shaker. So I laid down 2 solid coats of the Coyote tan. Right now we're waiting for the remainder of the 15-minute flash time before we put it into the oven. And that means it's time for me to clean the spray gun. Okay, so our 15-minute flash time is done. And we've got our oven warmed up to 150 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm gonna go ahead and rack that. This is gonna cure for 2 hours and we'll be done. Cool. So our 2-hour cure is done and the scope has been cooling off in the oven. Let's see what happened. There we go. That looks awesome. So there she is, Coyote tan. Okay, so the next step here, we're going to take off our clamp and then we start the painstaking and very meticulous process of unmasking. Looks like I had a little bit of a separation there in the front. Not bad. It looks like we didn't really get any seepage. Okay, so we got that front masking piece off. Actually, that looks really good. And so I'm going to go ahead and just proceed to get the rest of the masking taken off very carefully, and we'll see what she looks like. Well, I got all the masking off, and I'll have to say I'm really happy with how this scope turned out. What a great way to add some appropriate color, to tie in colors, and to create a truly custom rifle experience for a customer of yours. Now, again, this wasn't the complete Cerakote process. We've got a bunch of other videos that are going to cover other aspects, including abrasive blasting. We could definitely do some laser imaging here. We could do multiple colors. Lots of possibilities. But I hope what you learned from this video is how Cerakoting a scope requires some unique considerations and processes, which we just demonstrated. What I'd like to know is, what do you think about the process that I just showed? Do you Cerakote scopes, or do you want to have a scope Cerakoted? Drop a comment and we'll start that discussion. Don't forget, if you're in the market for a spray booth or a curing oven, the UR5 discount code will save you 5% at Built American's website. This is top quality equipment. It's what I use here in the shop, and I'm sure it would serve you well also. That concludes this video, and that means it's time to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're watching Ultimate Reloader on TV and want to take advantage of free resources, exclusives, and hot deals, just hold your camera phone up to the QR code, tap on the link, fill out the information, boom, you're getting Ultimate Reloader emails. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, where we've got unrestricted content, and Instagram. Make sure to follow us on all those channels. Ultimate Reloader also has a commercial solutions division serving law enforcement, the military, and the gun industry. We have some unique capabilities, including a comprehensive suite of recoil testing and evaluation capabilities, trigger profiling, and more. Thanks again for watching.